Good morning. So, today we're going to talk about focus. And the reason it's so important to really think consciously about what we focus on is because where we focus our energy, it grows. And so many times we get caught up in worries and doubts and fears, and that's what we're thinking about. That's where we're putting our energy. And, if you've ever had a situation where you were so worried or so nervous or so anxious about something, and it just kept getting worse and worse, and because that's where your mind was. So when you come upon a situation in life, a challenge, an obstacle, when it starts to bring up those negative emotions, the best thing to do to shift that energy is, okay, focus on the solution. And in some instances, there isn't really a solution per se. If it's just a negative situation or a situation you perceive to be negative, because that's really what it boils down to. Anything that happens just is. It is. It exists. It's not negative or positive until we put a label on it. So if you can shift your perspective about the situation and start looking for the opportunity in it, then you're no longer in that negative mindset. And when you start looking for opportunities, you find them. And that's the beauty of focus. So let's say that you have a test coming up and you're so worried about it and you just, you know, you've studied, you've prepared in every way you possibly can, but you still have all these feelings of anxiety coming up about this test. And so in that situation, what we do is we program our subconscious mind for success. So we focus on how we want the situation to go, right? It's visualization. And again, this is so powerful because our subconscious mind works in images, not language. So if you're trying to convince yourself in words that, oh, it'll be fine, I'm going to make it, it'll be okay, your brain's not buying it. It's not going to change your perception or the way you feel about that situation. But if you take time and you just get quiet, sit back, and start visualizing, I struggle with that word, success in whatever the endeavor is. Pour all of your focus, all of your energy into creating this vision of success, of you accomplishing this thing or overcoming this thing, and how you're going to feel in that moment, and really feel it. We've talked about this before, but it's so important that you actually feel what you're experiencing in your mind when you're imagining it. So, the other thing, let's say you have a problem. I prefer to call them challenges because that just has a more positive tone to it. And so you have a challenge. And when you're thinking about this situation, it just overwhelms you. In your mind, you just start feeling overwhelmed by it. So if you start looking for solutions and it's just too big for the solution, right? You can't find like one solution that's going to solve the whole problem. Break it down. What is this challenge? Like, if it's financial and you make $30,000 a year, you have $100,000 in debt, and looking at that, you break out in a cold sweat. You have no clue how you're ever going to get past this. It's too big, right? So, in a situation like that, we have to make it easier for our brain to approach the situation. So, you break it down. I make $30,000 a year. I'm going to write out my budget, and the cat's going to eat my shirt. I don't know, right? Focus. But anyway, you write out a budget. Find out what your base expenses are. Hopefully, it's less than $30,000 a year. If it's not, then okay, that's the first thing you need to address, right? The money you have coming in is not sufficient for the money that has to go out, which is probably what contributed to the $100,000 in debt. It could be student loans, it could be medical bills, it could be anything. But this is just an example of how this process would work. So you write out your budget. If you do have money left over, that would be a good amount to start putting into an automatic savings account. Like get it out of your checking, get it away from where you can spend it, right? Out of sight, out of mind. If you have direct deposit from your employer, have that automatically go into a savings account. Don't let your hands touch it. Don't let your eyes see it. And every month, at the end of the month, pick one of the debts to put that extra money on. It's called a debt snowball. And I was trying to think of the name of the gentleman who came up with this concept. He's very well known. I'll figure it out and put it in the comments. But he has amazing financial advice. But the snowball method is you pick your smallest debt because we want to see wins, right? Baby steps, wins. We want to focus on our wins. So pick your smallest debt. Say it's a credit card that's got a couple $100s on it. So you go ahead and take that extra money and put it on that credit card. When it's paid off, you take the amount that you were spending to pay that credit card, add it to the money you were putting in savings, right? So now all of that automatically goes in the savings account. And at the end of the month, you pick the next lowest credit card or the highest interest credit card. You know, you're building momentum here, right? And so then you've got all that extra money paying off that one. And each time you pay one off, take the amount of that monthly payment, add it to what's going in the savings account. You see how this works, that snowball effect? So instead of paying off a credit card and then putting that payment back into your monthly budget, put that into the snowball account to pay off all the rest of the debt. So each time you pay something off, you're adding momentum and you're gaining more to put towards the remaining debt. Now, if you're in a situation where at the end of the year you have less money than you made, then it's time to evaluate. How can you make more money? You know, and it's breaking it down in these little steps. First, identify the main problem. You make less than you spend. Well, okay, where can you cut expenses? Where can you know, cut out services? And a lot of us have like recurring payments for stuff that we haven't touched in years that we just forgot about that keep coming out. Go over your bank statements. Really analyze the budget and see where your money's actually going. And that's why it's so important to keep track of, you know, what are we actually doing? It's part of that stay present. You know, where did my money go? We're friends. I want it to hang out with me, right? But that's just an example. It could be any situation like that. But by breaking it down and really like taking a bird's eye view, okay, this is the challenge. What is a solution? And when you start looking for solutions instead of staring at the problem, you see ways to really get past it. But that's because your energy is now focused on the solution rather than the problem. And one of the stories that I've shared about how that like really made a huge difference in my life, I had been diagnosed with several chronic autoimmune disorders, just like a laundry list. And essentially, by 2017, I was walking with a cane and being told to go on disability. Keep in mind, if you have a chronic health condition, your life consists of medication, doctors, you know, it's just a constant in your day to day. And as my body was not functioning in the way that I had wanted it to, expected it to, I was focused on that. And I was very unhappy about it. So what happened when my doctor told me that I was just going to have to go on disability, there was nothing they could do, blah, 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 I fired them. It made me so angry. I don't know, something in me that day said, you know what, this is enough. I fired my doctor. So I've now removed them from the equation, so I had to come up with a solution, right? And I started focusing all of my energy on finding out what dietary changes I could make to make me feel better. What would help my body? What supplements could I take to reduce inflammation? How could I what fitness activities could I engage in? Even though I was limited at that time, what could I do to strengthen my body? All of my focus, all of my energy went into how to be healthier. And, if you know me now, if you know much about me, um, a couple years ago, I was driving a flatbed wrecker and obviously not on disability or disabled in any way. That's the power of focus and how we invest our energy. Invest it in something that's going to bring you a good return, right? You wouldn't invest in the stock market in a stock that's tanking day after day. Do the same for your life, for you. Take your energy and put it into what's going to give you the most gains, the most rewards, because you really want to look at the areas of your life that are mutually beneficial, right? If you put your energy into something that benefits someone else or something else or a place or a job or whatever, you should be getting equal return for that energy. So, and it's amazing how when we start to look at life in this way, we start to realize places where we've just wasted time, energy, resources, allowed other people or our employer or an organization to just kind of suck off of us, and we're really not getting anything in return. So that's kind of going off of focus. Oops. Anyway, I will stay focused and let you know that this is something that, like any other habit, takes some time. So, what you're going to have to work on really to start putting this in motion is to stay aware. Again, it's that be present. Stay aware of what you're feeling because that's our internal GPS, and that tells us when we're going the wrong way, when we're doing something that's probably not in our best interest. So, when you have that emotion come up about a challenge, about a situation, about a place, a thing, a person, take time to actually recognize it, figure out where it's coming from, and then come at it with affirmations, uh, you know, redirection, replacing it with more positive thought. Or if it's something like this, don't turn your back on the challenge and hope that it goes away. Because anything that we turn our back on, don't acknowledge, don't face, and actually resolve just continues to get bigger. You cannot hide from debt. You cannot hide from bad relationships. The best thing to do is face it, deal with it, and know that once that's off your plate, that just frees you up to start putting all of your energy into what you want to create instead of cleaning up all the garbage that we have left over from the past when we didn't know what we didn't know and we didn't make the choices that were going to take us to where we wanted to be. So, I'm sorry about the tangents, but I hope this helps. I will see you in the Q&A. Love and light.